Hello, I'm Larry Johnson. This is another episode brought to you by the International Unity Club and TAS, a chance for me to talk to some interesting, knowledgeable people. The goal is to open a dialogue of understanding between the people of Russia and the people of the United States. And so I'm doing my part in that regard. And today I get Andrei Murzin. Did I pronounce your last name correctly? Is it?
Larry.
Murzin, okay. So, you are a veteran of Akhmat, and I've spent, 36 years I've worked with U.S. military, special operations, special forces. So I have some appreciation for what you've gone through. But tell me, how did you get started in special forces in the Russian military?
Larry, good morning. I can tell you this. Actually, I had to choose the type of military forces I wanted to join. I used to enjoy hunting and sports and shooting. And when I faced this choice, what to choose, the response was the Akhmat Special Forces and Special Battalion. And later on, I found out that my choice was the correct and the best one, because the key indicator that characterizes Akhmat is that our commanders, T. Aronovich, my direct commander, are people who are at the front line with their soldiers.
Right.
And that instills you with confidence and strength.
Yeah, no, and having met and spoken with Opti or General Aludinov, you can tell he's a man who leads by example, not by word. There are some who will sit in the office, sit in the chair and tell people to do things. He's out front leading the men. And let me, so Akhmat, part of its fame and its reputation comes from the operation you carried out in March in Sudzha, with coming in through this gas pipeline without compromising operational security. Who came up with that idea?
Larry,
I'd like to correct you a little bit. Yes, indeed. It was the pipeline operation, and it was extremely complicated. But I took part in an operation that was before that. And when the Kursk, before the Kursk region incursion, we occupied a position close to Martinovka and Sudzha that was subsequently called Coliseum. And this was the place when we were defending defending for 41 days, and we prevented the opponent to approach Kursk.
Okay. Did you ever did you have friends who were on the pipeline operation?
Yes.
Сейчас непосредственно я обучаюсь
I'm being trained at the moment. It is a program for the special military operation veterans and participants known as the Heroes of South Urals, and one of my colleagues was a participant of the pipeline operation, or the so-called flow operation.
Now, my understanding is the pipeline was like 2 meters in diameter, or how big of it? Because you were not able, the soldiers were not able to stand up and walk normally. They had to bend over.
Yes, that's correct. The dimensions of the pipe was 1.5 meters. And according to my brethren in arms, it was a very complicated operation. And they had to bend down, and they did a great job.
Well, yeah, I've just walking normally, walking, say, 5 miles is arduous. And so that would be 5 miles would be like 8 kilometers. My understanding is they had to walk 13 kilometers bent over, carrying also a weapon and ammunition, if I'm not mistaken, which is not light. As you know, it's not light.
Larry, in addition to the flow operation in the towns of Lysychansk and other towns, a similar operation by soldiers, including those who served in the Akhmat battalion. There was a training operation, and the flow operation or the pipe operation was the consolidation of the experience gained during prior operations, and this enabled us to succeed.
Yeah. How do you prepare for something like, how would you train some young soldiers to do that?
Well, the training, the preparation in the Akhmat Special Battalion begins from day one. Once volunteers join the Gudermes battalion, they start learning, including shooting, including various defense tactics, and the preliminary boot camp is about 14 days for young soldiers. And using myself as an example, I can tell you that after the training at the Russian University of Special Forces, there was another boot camp where instructors were Wagner private security company veterans. And our training sessions lasted from early morning till late at night. And we practiced operations in thick forests, in trenches, and there was a military alignment of mobile groups. Larry, a pause is needed, Igor says. And the soldiers are trained to use ammunition, including granite launchers, sniper guns and rifles, and various other types of weapons. And that gives diversity, and soldiers can use various types of weapons. Larry, the flow or the pipe operation was undoubtedly one of big successes in defending the region of Kursk, and my friends took part in that operation. But please allow me to tell you how we began the defense of the Kursk Oblast or Kursk region in autumn 2024. As I've already told you, we had a position that was subsequently called Coliseum. It was a small farming complex, farming business, basically. And we had a small group of people, which was about 30-35 men strong. There were small groups. We disguised ourselves, and we began the observation of the neighborhood. At that point in time, the enemy had already occupied Sudzha, and basically there were 4 to 5 kilometers. They were 4 to 5 kilometers away from our positions. And I found myself in that position as a communication serviceman. And I arrived initially to establish communication for various units that had to align with each other. But it turned out that the hostilities became very tough and cruel. And due to that, we began finding ourselves we were encircled. We were basically surrounded by the enemy. And after a few days, when we were in position, there was the first intelligence group of Ukrainian soldiers who used pickup trucks trying to penetrate the complex. They were not aware that Akhmat's special military men were there, and they were not aware that none of us would surrender or would back down. And the very first contact was very successful, and we caught 2 prisoners, and we managed to collect quite a lot of insights and interesting information. And as a result, we managed to keep our position. And at that point in time, given that the Ukrainian group did not return to its position, we were attacked by drones and by mine launchers. After a few days, there was another attempt to storm our position, but we managed to drive them away. And our comrades in arms managed to actually destroy an armored vehicle. But there was constant fire, and during that time, I had to change the location of the communication center, because at first the shelter was destroyed by shelling. Then I found a basement, and there were 3 or 4 EPV drones that targeted that basement. And then my final position was in a semi-demolished place, and this was a house. This is where I stayed. And we spent about a month surrounded by the enemy. In terms of medicine, we were very grateful to our Akhmat comrades who used drones to supply us with medicine. And there were attempts to break the enemy's line to reach us, and then large artillery and enemy's tanks began attacking us. On the 19th of September, our hangar was practically destroyed by a tank fire. All of us were wounded, and the night that was quiet, when there was no active fire by the enemy. This was the time when we were helping each other, when we were using painkillers, and when we were dressing our wounds. And there was a command to evacuate those wounded from their position. And we were waiting for our soldiers to break their way through the enemy's defense to create a corridor for military trucks. But early in the morning, the enemy began an attack, and an offensive attack. And there was a close-range shooting battle. And once an evacuation vehicle arrived, those who were wounded could and could walk on their own legs received an order to start moving towards the evacuation vehicle, and we took one of our colleagues who had a severe injury, a leg injury, and we had to cover 150 meters to get to the vehicle. But it seemed so long, as if we had to cover 3 or 5 kilometers, and we were always concerned that a drone might attack us. And when we eventually reached the vehicle was struck by an EPV drone, and there was an explosion. I don't know, I think it was a miracle, perhaps. Maybe God Almighty has something planned for us, and our own fate is determined by God. And so I was thrown out of the vehicle, and my colleagues who were standing next by managed to take me and drag me to an adjacent building that survived the heavy shelling. And it was not a random comment when I mentioned God. There was a spiritual element because Akhmat, as a special military battalion, is very serious about faith. You know, you can actually feel that when you are on a battlefield, you can hear Orthodox prayers. You can hear prayers in other tongues, and everyone is united by love towards God and love towards their motherland, and everyone was thinking about their families to make sure that they would be safe and sound.
Yeah, no, I think one of the remarkable things about Akhmat is the religious faith that also undergirds the military discipline. Those are inseparable. And it's, let me take you back in history, because you're a relatively young guy. You're about the age of my son, I think, so I'll adopt you. But you grew up during the Second Chechen War, or I'm assuming you did. That were you in Chechnya at the time, or were you still in the Ural Mountains?
During those times, I lived in the Urals mountains, and unfortunately, the history of Russia of 1990s, early 2000 was such that there were external forces who tried to disintegrate our society and instill it with strife, and religious beliefs were misinterpreted. And but I was born and raised in the Urals, and there is a very interesting thing in the region of Chelyabinsk. Practically 50% of our population, in addition to Russians, are Tatars and people of Bashkirian origin. And this is why, from early childhood, Orthodox faith and Islam in our region used to live, coexist peacefully with each other. And perhaps the most important thing now is that children are communicated the right religious message, so that there is no misinterpretation. Because if we go back to our early history, the Prince Alexander of Neva had an emblem of sacred Koran on his helmet. And God's victory and success are standing close. Let believers know about it. Even in those days, people understood that the Orthodox Christian faith and Islam would live hand in hand, would go hand in hand. There is one and only God. We all believe in Him. We believe in family values. And going back to your question, we need to avoid disintegration of our country in the future. And we need to talk to children. We need to go to schools. We need to approach families. We need to talk, to speak God's word to them, and that everyone can live together peacefully in Russia.
You know, you may not appreciate this as I do, but as an outsider looking in, Russia has something very special to teach the world. That, you know, like in my country, there is conflict between Christian and Muslim. Whereas in Russia, you've shown that you're brothers and sisters. You may have a different approach to worshiping God, but both sides worship God and acknowledge the right of the other to worship God. And it's, you know, that's something I think that one of the things that Russia has to teach the world. It's a path forward to peace. And as you've seen during your life growing up, this outside influence, unfortunately my own country, the United States through the CIA was instrumental in helping try to feed that war, to try to create conflict between Muslim and Christian. And they failed because Russia prevailed in that, which is why I think what Akhmat represents right now in this, I would even call it a holy war, because Russia is facing, it's not Ukraine. Ukraine is merely a pawn on a chessboard. It is being used by the West to try to destroy Russia, but in the process they're also destroying Slavic brothers and sisters in Ukraine. So I think you appreciate that you're involved in something more that's much bigger than just a simple battle for, you know, territory in Sudzha.
I fully agree with you. You know, one cannot imagine someone without faith. In Russia, it's been since prehistoric times when faith was, when there were people who tried to kill other people's faith. But once there were turbulent times, or once events occurred that made our people get together, be consolidated to defend the motherland, all that demonstrated that there was faith in people's souls, and it will always be there. Quite recently, we were celebrating a public holiday, the Day of National Unity. It is also a day when Russia recovered the famous icon of Mary, God's mother. And despite the fact that there was a communism in Russia, but even during Soviet times, it was obvious that people were believers. And, you know, historically, people took icons and walked with those icons along the streets of various cities. And no matter what faith a Russian citizen has, faith and beliefs are an indispensable element of our lifestyle. This is something that influences people's actions, people's way of life. And perhaps the most terrible thing is to deceive yourself and to understand that such self-deceit would be fruitless, would not lead to anything positive.
Of course, one thing I'll say is one of also your distinguishing characteristics. You're from the mountains. In my experience, and I've been around the world, I've always found mountain people are hard people. It's one thing to walk on flat land. It's another thing to have to walk up a mountain, particularly if you're carrying weight. That environment makes you a hard person. There's an expression in English, I don't know how well it translates into Russian. You know what a woodpecker is?
Yes, I do. I know birds.
So the expression is hard as woodpecker lips. So I think in my mind, I think a great patch for a special forces unit would be one with the woodpecker with the lips of steel, because that's a hard, that's a hard unit and able to confront difficulties and prevail. You're now involved with SVOIM. Am I pronouncing that right? SVOIM.
Благотворительный фонд «SVOIM».
Yes, it is a charitable foundation called SVOIM. The charitable foundation launched its work before I before I took part in the special military operation. And when I returned, we continued the efforts. And I'd like to express deep gratitude to the leadership of the foundation, Igor Goncharenko, who supported me when I was hospitalized after I was injured and wounded. And the operation of that charitable foundation is indispensable because there are lots of young guys who, in addition to physical assistance when they need to be hospitalized, when they need prosthesis, they also need moral support, because anyone who returns from a warfare behaves in a different way. And in addition to families that play a decisive role, friends and those people who've been through similar experiences are also crucial to support those people so that there are no psychological issues or syndromes. Because many warriors, many soldiers, many war veterans, similar to your war veterans, suffer from feeling unneeded, and they kind of go deep inside themselves. And in addition to this support, we have also embarked on a new format of patriotic upbringing of young people. There was a tournament of mini football, a shooting tournament, and we had teams of special military operation participants and teams combined of active young people. And young people are charged with that wild energy to understand what their life goals should be. Perhaps make a decision to become a military man. And veterans get support and they can socialize, and they can see that their efforts were not useless, they were not futile. They see children's eyes and they feel that support. It is no secret that many kindergarten children and school children send letters to soldiers fighting, and they actually make special candles for trenches. And it is one of the reasons why the morale would go down, because they understand that what they're doing is for future generations.
Now, did this start before the special military operation, or did it come into being after the start of the special military operation?
Well, you know, the situation is quite curious. You know, the legal registration of the foundation was during the first days of the special military operation. And we can say that this charitable SVOIM foundation goes in parallel with the special military operation. And we are also learning our lessons. We understand the new needs that young people who have come from the front have. And in actual fact, if we look at the SVOIM charitable operation and the way they started working in our new regions in the Crimea, I should say that everything began much earlier because there was an initial need to render help and assistance.
Well, whoever had the vision to do it was very smart, because I know, looking back at the U.S. military, and you know, I started working with U.S. Special Operations Forces, Delta Force, SEAL Team 6, back in 1989, and I know that period from, say, 1989 up until 2001, they were not, you know, they very rarely were engaged in any kind of combat mission. After 2001, that changed, and the operations tempo was very intense. And, you know, for example, I had a friend who was a sniper with Delta Force, and his career lasted from 1985 until 2000. And during that entire period, he never had to fire at anyone, was never in a combat mission. The people that came after him were involved with multiple combat missions, and the stress, the mental stress upon those people has led really to a crisis where the number of veterans that are committing suicide because they come back from intense combat and they no longer have the support of their comrades, and this is, you know, general society doesn't understand what they've been through. And the United States was not proactive like this. They didn't. It took them several years and say, "Oh, we have a problem. We need to try to address this." So, was it Goncharenko that came up with this, or was the who was sort of the founder of it?
I can put it this way. The founding fathers of the foundation were Igor Goncharenko, Sergei Glazyev, and Alexander Kazakov. This was a team of people. There were many more people involved. In Russia, the creative position is a great thing, because when you create value, it is something that unites people. And we are not only talking about an example of a celebrity or some important person, but it is a path that we cover to understand that help will be needed. We have to help each other as much as we can. And perhaps this is the advantage of our society, that in addition to the fact that our soldiers are winning a victory at the front lines, those who are home are not indifferent and are helping our soldiers. If we look at the volunteers organizations and at the number of such volunteer organizations that emerged recently, there are people who send humanitarian and aid to the front. There are grannies, babushkas, grandmothers, children, researchers, people of various calls and from various fields. They need, disguised networks for military, for the military, and the special military operation has enabled us to go away from that mindset that was created, the consumerism idea, social networks, etc., and people became oblivious of cultural values. But the special military operation consolidated our society, and it enabled us to feel that unfriendly nations would not be able to create strife in our society or division in our society. And this is perhaps the secret, the mystery of the Russian soul for other nations. The more pressure we feel, the more consolidated we become.
Is there, so in the U.S. military, somebody who has been wounded in combat receives an award called the Purple Heart. What award does Russia issue to soldiers like yourself who have been wounded in battle?
We have government awards, and we are nominated by our commanders. After the Coliseum fight we talked about, Coliseum mission, our commander was nominated the Hero of Russia, and we were nominated for the Order of Valor. And actually, there is quite a big range of medals awarded in Russia. This is the Suvorov medal, the Zhukov medal, the Bravery medal.
Yeah, explain what you're wearing, because people, I think the average person watching, particularly in the United States, will not understand the meaning and importance of those. So, can you walk me through what you're wearing on your chest?
At the moment, I have a medal for the service in Special Forces, a medal for a volunteer in SVO, and a veteran medal, and a medal of the participant of a special convoy. In April 2025, I was awarded a Suvorov medal. It is not awarded immediately. People say that it is about to arrive.
Okay. And what's the red bar?
The red bar is the wound in battlefield.
Okay, so whenever anyone sees a soldier with that, they should know this man has borne wounds for his country.
Yes, on a battleground, on a battlefield.
Okay. What separates just a conventional Russian soldier from a special forces soldier like in Akhmat.
Well, you know, I think it would be more correct to speak about something else rather than the difference.
Okay.
Well, the distinguishing feature that is characteristic of an Akhmat soldier. The first is discipline, strict discipline, a strong belief in real values, in true values. And leading by and using my own experience and using my comrades in arms as an example, I can tell you that Akhmat stands till the end. No one surrenders. As people used to say before, in Soviet times movies, your honor is above everything.
Mm-hmm. Well, I can tell that from just talking to you for this brief period, that you are a man of honor. And I applaud your service to your country and for the other men, your other colleagues that you represent. Unfortunately, we've run out of time for this discussion. So I want to thank you for sharing, and thank you for your bravery and your courage and your integrity. It's been an honor.
Thank you very much for your very interesting questions and for the opportunity to meet you.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for watching, and please hit the like and subscribe button if you're watching it on a social media platform. Thank you. I'm Larry Johnson.